been spending most their lives living in a pastime paradise. They've been wasting most their days in remembrance of ignorance. Oh, this praise tell me, friends and family, amigos y familia, what's happening? Hola, mucho gusto. Bien, 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 bien. I'm here with my guy, my friend, Mr. Christian Hayden. Hi, Christian.
Hi, Kevin. How are you doing?
I couldn't be better.
There's
Does anybody ever
nothing.
stop you on the street and say, did you play Anakin in the Star Wars prequels?
All the time. When people find out my name, that's the first question. They're like, like Darth Vader, like Anakin Skywalker. Every
Yeah,
time.
every time. And what do you
But
say?
it makes for you can't Google me, so I appreciate
Oh,
that.
that's
Because
awesome.
it just thinks you're looking for Hayden Christensen.
Right. It says, do you mean? Yeah,
Yes.
right.
But you said you could not be better. There's nothing in the world that could happen to you that would make it better.
I don't think so. My wife and kids are out of town. The weather's nice. I've got it all going for me right now. I've got zero complaints.
Okay. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
that's great to hear.
So I brought you on here because I've heard you on other shows and you are very vocal about everything. And I love that about you. Not only do I love that about you, we worked together at Nintendo. I remember when we worked together, I was drawn to you because of you had just enough nerdiness and also normalness that made you approachable and not so much nerdiness to where you were like, ha, 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 I know all the things, but you did know all the things. And also you were approachable. You were just such a good blend that I just thought you could run the whole place. I thought this guy is to the moon in this company. There's no ceiling for this guy. And I feel like our boss would always bring you in on things. And I think that they have to give preference to people who've been there longer, but if they didn't have to, you would have been the head of all projects. But why'd you leave?
Well, first off, thank you. Those are very kind words, and I aim to be nerdy yet approachable. That's not true. I just aim to be myself and try not to be too much of an a-hole. But those are very nice things you said. I left because I felt that I had hit the ceiling
Really?
for what I wanted to do. I am not a person that likes to sit and kind of spin my wheels. I'm constantly needing to grow. It's something that I found out about myself in my first real job. That I'm not happy unless I'm learning more, doing more, and honestly, kind of being in charge of things is usually kind of where I end up gravitating towards.
Yeah.
And with Nintendo, it's a big company. They have their own way of doing things. And I just felt like they wanted me to maybe kind of sit in where I was a little longer than I was comfortable doing. So, I had a different opportunity that came up for me. And I decided to take that opportunity as an opportunity to go and learn a different skill set and maybe, take that back to Nintendo or take that somewhere else. I think the goal at the time was I'm going to go learn a new skill set and then I am going to bring it back to Nintendo. That was the goal. Where we are in terms of that now, I don't know. Things change. But I left because I was uncomfortable being in the position that I was in. Not that I didn't enjoy the position that I was in, but I just wanted a little bit more, and they weren't ready to give that to me yet.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. I can see that in your personality wanting more and to be in that position. I think one of the hardest things for me is telling people one of the things that kept me there actually as long as it did was that I didn't want to tell people, yeah, I used to work for Nintendo and then be like, what in the world? Why'd you leave there? Are you a dummy? And I still tell people that, and it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Right in my head, I'm like, and nobody's ever said that. Like, why'd you leave? They're just like, oh, that's cool. Was that fun? And I'm like, yeah, it was. Anyways, but is that hard for you to tell people that you used to work there?
Yeah, it is. I had the exact same feeling that you just mentioned. I was really worried about like telling people because it was a badge of pride, to be honest. I'm a big
Exactly. Yeah.
Nintendo fan. I have been my whole life. When the opportunity was presented to me to go work for Nintendo, I was like, oh, this is crazy. This is my dream job, essentially. Like, and in a lot of ways, Nintendo is still my dream job and still my dream company. And like I said, maybe I'll find my way back there one day. But I was like, oh man, like it's weird quitting your dream job sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then having to let people know, like, I used to work for Nintendo. And like you said, no one's ever been like, what an idiot. Like, I can't believe you left. People are just, like you said, they're like, oh, that was cool. That sounds like it was cool. But I definitely did have that fear of like, I don't want to tell people I used to work there.
Yeah.
It seems so irrational now, but at the time it was just like, because you get such a positive reaction when you do work for them and you go
Yeah.
and people are like, what do you do for a job? And you say, well, I work for Nintendo, and eyes light up and they're just like, what? That's crazy. What do you do? I was always kind of like the talk of the town at family gatherings. People are like, what's new in the world of Nintendo? Or they'd bring
Yeah.
a new friend or family member and they'd be like, this guy works for Nintendo. And I'm not going to lie, it was cool. That kind of
Yeah.
attention is fun. And you get to talk about your job, which I loved. And I was like, nah, I'm just going to be the guy who used to work at Nintendo. And it really hasn't been that bad.
Yeah, I remember we actually went to Cabo right before COVID hit, like the February before COVID hit. We were in Cabo, and this is when I was heavily drinking. And we were at the bar, and somebody's like, what do you do? And I remember, I still feel bad for it. I was like, I work for a little company called Nintendo. Ever heard of them? You're like, of course I've heard of them. I used to, and then,
Yeah.
it goes from there. But I was just basically just bragging about it. I never did that after that because I felt like such a douche. But yeah, but it was nice to say that.
When you work somewhere like Nintendo, it is hard to not brag about it sometimes. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember when I took the job I took after Nintendo, and I had to do like my first day orientation, introduce yourself thing. Like I was like, yeah, I used to work for Nintendo, blah, blah, blah. And then afterwards, everyone came up to me and they're like, oh, you worked at Nintendo? What was that like? And I was like, yeah, I worked at Nintendo. Like it was pretty cool. Like I definitely know all the secrets, even though we were bottom of the rung. I was like, I have no idea on anything cool that happened there. I was just, I was, for lack of a better term, another cog in the machine. But
Exactly.
you definitely play it up sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. I end up telling people I worked for the dream company, but it wasn't my dream job.
Yeah.
Which basically is what that boiled down to. Fantastic company, but where we were at was not where I envisioned myself there. We went to, I think it was a smack, and I think you were there, but we did like a personality test or something, and they ended up putting everybody's results up on the board on like where you ranked as far as leadership. Or do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Do you remember what you ranked high in?
No, I have no idea because I thought it was silly.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think you can quantify that as well as companies think you can quantify that. I think it has a lot to do more with personality and putting people in real world situations.
Yeah.
So I didn't really pay too much attention to it. Do you remember where you ranked?
I think a lot of that is situational. You're right. I ranked I was like 98% empathy.
That totally makes sense. So
I know. Yeah, that's yeah. So I was just curious what it said for you, but I don't blame you at all for not remembering that.
Well, 98% empathy, that they gotta like, not speaking about Nintendo specifically, but just any corporate, that's got to be like, oh, we don't want this guy at any corporate job. Like they don't want you to have empathy in these roles, unfortunately.
Yeah. That's so true. Yeah. 90% of the people that I've had on this podcast have been dog people. You are a cat guy. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, I mean, I like dogs, but I am definitely, if you had to put me in one bucket or the other, I'm a cat person for sure.
Why? Is it because of your childhood?
Yeah, my mom was never a big dog person, and we rented houses as I grew up, and we're not allowed to have dogs. We technically weren't allowed to have cats, but it's a lot easier to get away with having a cat than a dog when you're not supposed to have one. So when I wanted a pet when I was younger, I wanted a dog, but was told no, we can't get a dog. And I got a cat and found that I like cats a lot. Both animals have their perks. But when you bond with a cat, you bond in a way that I think is not dissimilar to bonding with a dog, but like cats have a different vibe about them, and it like I feel like dogs often love you unconditionally, regardless of what's going on, and cats you really got to work at getting their approval, which a
Yeah,
lot of people don't like, and I totally understand that. But like when you can get a cat's like trust and approval, it feels really special.
you've really earned it.
Yeah.
That makes sense. As opposed to a dog that's just going to love you no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, you go into like an adoption agency, and every dog's excited to see you. Cats are so much more indifferent, and you really got to work to gain their respect. And unless you're my cat Bones, who immediately was like, "I love you. You're the
Yeah.
best." Like when we went and adopted him, he was immediately like, "I'm just here to play and be best friends with you." It was awesome, and he's very much like he's kind of the best kind of cat because he's kind of a dog in a cat's body where he just loves everybody and just loves hanging out and playing.
Is there a way that you figured out to not have the kitty litter smell?
You have to be very vigilant,
Okay.
unfortunately. It's I don't think it's anything you can get away from, unfortunately, as a cat person.
Yeah.
Uh, Without getting too gross, you just I've tried various litters and we found ones that work well for again, every cat's different, so we found ones that have worked well for our cats, and you just kind of have to stay on top of it after that. It's when I have a lot of guests over, the litter boxes go in the bedroom and the door closes because I'm not gonna have that out.
Yeah.
But there's just you got to put it in a sequestered room, close the door if you can, get a pet door on there. Like there's no good solution that I've come across, both for myself or for anybody else I know that's a cat person.
Have you seen the? I know you've seen these. The robot ones that just sweep it off occasionally and just keep running. Do those work?
No, they don't. I
Oh,
can tell you, helped a friend during a tough time in their life, and they had one of those robot litter cleaners in their walk-in closet, and it did not make it better because again, you have to be vigilant because they clean the litter so the litter's clean, but it just dumps everything into a tray below, so it's not like the smell or the gross stuff goes away. It's not like it's being like automatically flushed down a toilet or something, so you still have to clean it. And let me tell you, if you don't clean it, it still smells.
you live in California. Do you have any desire to live anywhere else?
It's tough because I love California and I love where I live. I live outside of Los Angeles. I live about 2 hours away from San Diego. I live about 4 hours away from Las Vegas. So I'm within arm's reach of most fun things there are to do in the country in terms of like events, and obviously, hey, we're going on tour. There's a stop in LA, there's a stop in San Diego every time. And for the most part, I love the weather. I love being able to go to the beach. But as I've gotten older and I've traveled more places, I do see myself. I would really like to live in Seattle. I like Seattle a lot, that area. I really like
Yeah.
being up in Washington and seeing how green everything is and there's trees everywhere. I don't know if I could live like on the East Coast because it's probably a little too cold for me, but I think about living in a different country a lot, and I could see myself living possibly in Germany or Canada or one of the Nordic countries where they still primarily speak English
Right. Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
don't want to have to learn another language too much. because that's something I don't have the skill set for. But I don't know. I mean, if I never leave California, I'm not going to be upset about it.
Yeah, and we've talked about living overseas too. I think anywhere over there in Europe, you're going to get a lot of English speaking. You can get by with what you know without having to be multilingual.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems more and more appealing. It just sort of seems like, and granted, this is an outsider's perspective, and I'm definitely ignorant to a lot of it, but it these days it seems like they have their stuff together over there, and I want to be somewhere that seems like they have their stuff together and can really sustain. Like, I'm at the point in my life where I've been thinking about family and starting a family, and I don't know, like it doesn't seem all that doable where I'm at right now, which is another reason that California seems tough to stick around in. I mean, I have a coworker right now who just told me he's moving to Georgia because he can't find somewhere to afford in California because he has 2 cats and he doesn't want to get rid of them. And he's like, they're already asking $2,000 for a 1-bedroom apartment and then pet fees on top of that. He's like, I can't afford that. So he's moving. Like, his initial goal was to get his girlfriend to move from Georgia to here. And then now he's moving out there because he's just like, it's more doable out there. So I understand it being tough in California. Do you like living in Colorado? It seems like a nice place to live. I have a buddy who lives in Colorado. Like, is that a nice middle ground for you guys?
It is. It is. I had, when we first moved here, the first friend I made was from LA. And I remember talking to him and I'm like, there's so much diversity here. And he just like laughed in my face. Because compared to LA, there's not a lot of diversity, but compared to East Tennessee, it's a whole new world. So it's good for us. It's a good place to raise a kid. It's just run its course. And I think we also look at, the state of the world and where we could be most impactful and happiest and safest and sanest. And, we've looked at Europe and Italy and, all these places as well. So I don't know. We really like Seattle too. I don't know what it is about that vibe there, but I really, really like it because it's cold and rainy and miserable, but it's green and inviting. And I really like Seattle too. It's weird that you said that.
I went to Portland a few years back and it has very much a similar vibe to Seattle. And I think what I like about both those cities is that they're cities, but right outside of them is an inviting and calm suburb, and you don't really get that, at least like for me in California. I'm in the suburbs of LA and it's still crazy and loud and packed and chaotic. I personally don't really like LA. I don't think it's as inviting as some of these other large metropolitan areas. Whereas when I went to Seattle, my wife and I went in August last year, and it just felt very like warm and inviting. And you're walking down the street and there's coffee shops with signs that say, come on in. And it's not to say that they don't have that where I'm at, but you know what I mean? It's just a different vibe,
Yeah, it is.
And everything in California is so dense and compact, and there's just stuff on top of stuff on top of stuff. And I really don't vibe with that. And in Seattle, things are more spread out. So it's like, okay, I'm getting away from the city and now I'm in the suburbs and now I'm in the countryside. Now I'm at the beach, that sort of stuff.
Speaking of starting a family, if I'm to judge on the internet alone, which really that's all that I have to go off of, you seem like an excellent husband. You post that your wife is beautiful. You've been married now almost 6 years. Has it been 6 years? You got married in 2020, right?
2021.
2021. So almost 5 years or 5 years.
This year. 5 years in June.
Okay. Congratulations. And you still have that flame, which marriages don't have. I mean, I don't see any other husbands posting, my wife's so beautiful, go tell her I said that. But you do post that, and that's inspiring, and that's awesome.
Well, thank you. It
That's
does
not a
not
question.
come.
I don't know where I was going with that. I just thought I'd let you know.
No, I appreciate that. I will say it does not come naturally. I will not take credit just saying that's the kind of person I am. I mean, yes, that's the kind of person I aspire to be, but it's come with a lot of work and marriage therapy. You know, we were in marriage counseling for a long time, and it's not because anything was particularly wrong or bad or we were in danger of splitting up. We went into our marriage knowing that we wanted to go into counseling to figure out how to be the best partner for each other.
That's amazing.
Um, and so it's a lot of work, and it's, you know, people tell you that being married is a lot of work, but I don't think that's ever really emphasized how much work it is. And
Mm-hmm.
it has to be something that you want to work at. And I remember very much early on in my relationship with my wife, um, I told her that I'm in this to do the work. And I don't want to say she wasn't on the same page, but she didn't necessarily understand that that's how relationships worked. And she was like, when I told her that, she was like, okay, I am too. And that kind of locked us in. And that's been a good foundation for our entire relationship is we're here to put in the work. And then the moment we're not ready to put in the work, then that's when the real problems are, you know, because, you know, we have a good foundation. Neither of us do anything to intentionally hurt each other or anything that I would consider like a pitfall for a relationship. And we just kind of build off of, you know, we have good intentions and we need to make course corrections here and there.
Yeah, that's really good. I haven't heard it put that well, but you're exactly right. We did marriage counseling too, and it is solid work. And I let my wife know from the beginning, like divorce is not an option for me. So basically, kind of like what you were saying, I'm here to put in the work, regardless of ups, downs, whatever happens. I'm not walking away from this. And that's kind of the security that I gave her from the beginning. And I think that that's helped too. My advice to you in starting a family, if that's something that is on your mind, is to know that that amount of work goes into kids. It's that same stuff, but you have a teammate in that with your wife too. So
Yeah, that is it's definitely something we're thinking about, but the current state of the world and the current state of our personal lives in terms of jobs and where we want to be is sort of what's holding us back. I think
yep, that's fair.
in a different world, maybe that a pandemic didn't happen in,
Yeah.
um, we would be a lot further along in that journey. And I have honestly mixed feelings about it. I felt for a long time that I was not equipped to be a father.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just me being a realist, realizing that I'm a little more selfish than I'd like to be. But as I've grown with my wife, uh, that opinion has changed a lot. And right now, I'm apprehensive about jumping in headfirst to starting a family because I want to be equipped to do that. I don't
Yeah.
want to have the struggles that come that I see a lot of friends and family and acquaintances struggle with, where they just kind of, I don't want to say they don't think about it, but like they're just not prepared. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to be
Yeah.
prepared. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, and people have said you'll never be 100% prepared, right? But that's kind of one of those things where you see the deep end and you just got to jump in, but you know the risks and you've taken the swim tests and you've done the courses, but you know, that's the best you can do as opposed to some people just jump right in without, you know, any kind of training, but it's
Yeah,
you still got to swim. So you
yeah.
can never be 100% prepared, but yeah. Yeah. Were you ever in any kind of religious at all?
Yeah, I was raised. I don't know. I just was raised Christian. I don't know what denomination we were,
Mm-hmm.
but I went to church almost every Sunday for a long time growing up, and it was never something that, you know, my growing up. It was my dad was in my life, but it was basically just me and my mom.
Yeah.
And my dad wasn't a religious person, so it was my mom and I going to church on Sundays and stuff. It was never something she ever really pushed on me or said, hey, this is what you need to believe. And my mom, especially now, is not a particularly religious person anymore. But we had religious friends, and I think it was more of like a community aspect.
Yeah.
But I will say that it was something that never really resonated with me. And
Yeah.
that was probably more that I was a snotty kid that was just like, why am I wasting my Sunday at church?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
the coolest part to me was going to Denny's afterwards and getting $2 to play the claw machine. Like that was what
Yeah.
I was in it for, and occasionally get to see my one friend that I knew that went to the same church. But I would say probably after like ages like 10, 12, that was never something that was big to me in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. I know before I've reached out to you and said, hey, I'm praying for you. And I still do pray for you. And I just want to say thank you for being accepting of that, because you could easily say, piss off. I've told other people, hey, I'm praying for you. And they're like, you might as well not, because that's not going to work. So I just wanted to say thank you for being accepting of that and cool with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not closed-minded in the fact that I don't want to respect what you believe, and I absolutely appreciate you, praying for me and reaching out and saying, "Hey, I'm thinking about you, and I'm wishing the best for you."
Yeah.
It's a whole nother conversation when it becomes, I don't know how to put this.
Forced.
Yeah, forced, or when you're trying to control another person's life with it. You have your beliefs, and that's great, but you've never forced them on me. You've never said, hey, this is the way you should be living, or hey, you're doing things the wrong way. And I can absolutely appreciate that. I mean, like I said, I grew up with religious people, and none of them were ever like, no, you're wrong, you're bad, you're doing things. So like, and my mom like literally read the Bible every morning, like front cover to cover, multiple times. And she was never, she raised me to believe that she's got her beliefs and this is how she feels, but she never forced those on other people, and was never like, if somebody came and was a different religion or something, she was never like, oh, those people got it wrong. She was,
Yeah.
I credit my mom a lot for being a very accepting and thoughtful person, and raising me to be that way. So it's a whole different conversation than I think what we see in I guess a lot of the mainstream media, or just how a lot of, I don't want to say a lot of people, but a good amount of people approach religion. I would say in 2026.
Yeah. That kind of leads me into it's a semi quote here from something I read online where this guy basically says, because our military is the strongest in the world, our enemies, our adversaries, use psychological warfare and turns kids versus parents, blacks versus whites, political divide, put all that stuff online and through the mainstream media or whatever to divide us from within, because they can't attack us military wise. He said, but when you go outside and get offline, you don't see any of that. You don't see any of those divides and anything. What do you think about that statement?
I guess at its core, I would have to agree to that, because when I'm outside personally, do I have judgments of other people as I see them? Yeah, but like when I'm just interacting with another person, no, I don't. I'm not thinking about it in the same way that I'm thinking about interacting with other people online. People, when you're online, you're very open, and you kind of wear your beliefs and your values on your sleeve a lot of the time. And you, myself included, you tend to make certain things a big part of your personality, and you don't really have that in person. All you really have to go on is interacting with another human being. And I think about it, right now I'm at a retail job, so I interact with people 24/7. And I think about that a lot when I'm working with somebody, And I'm thinking about a guy specifically right now who's become a regular, and I know this guy, and I wouldn't see eye to eye if we talked, but like we get along super well otherwise. And I think that's really what it comes down to. And I think if you pull people out from the internet and you really just kind of sit down and have a conversation with them, that most people are more alike than you would give them credit for. I mean, I know I have some good friends who their personas online are, I wouldn't say radically different, but they're different. And then when you get to talking to them in person, like I just said, they're a little bit more curious, they're a little bit more accepting, they're a little bit more open-minded. And I would say the reverse is true for me. The internet, I think, has been very good for a lot of things, very detrimental in other ways. And I think that, yeah, that quote is very true, because you kind of have, like, our enemies kind of have to approach things from the point of view of a psyop to really create that division. And I would say put us where we are right now.
Yeah, that's true. I call them keyboard gangsters, the people that get online and can just say whatever they want behind the keyboard, but then in real life, they're not going to back that up, right? And I fear that for my kids and just the younger generation in general, that they have this online persona, and then once they get face to face with somebody, they don't know how to act as humans. So we'll see. That's TBD. What do you think about AI?
That's a conversation. I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the baseline. I think it's very scary. I think that a lot of it could be used in good ways, and I don't think that's how we're using it right now. I think it is right now a tool of the ultra wealthy and the ultra influential, being used to wreak havoc and cut costs, cut human costs, so they can make more money. That's just what I see being used for, but both in the industry that I'm submerged in, the video game industry, and also just in general. There was a news article a day or two ago where they said Disney just laid off over 1,000 VFX artists at Marvel Studios. And they didn't explicitly say it's because, hey, we're replacing people with AI, but like Disney's invested billions of dollars into AI, and I would be surprised if that's not what they're going to replace those VFX artists with. And that's just unfortunate, because it doesn't cost them. They don't have to pay healthcare for AI. They don't have to pay dental or vision for AI. They don't have to pay life insurance. They don't have to pay AI. They just have to buy the computers and set them up, and it makes them money in a way that they see is comparable to humans, and you'll never be able to replace what a human can do with what a machine can do. And even if you can, that's not a world I want to live in. That's a scary thought. So I think that if we were using AI to cure cancer and automate mindless tasks that we have to do day to day, if I could just whip up, and I'm sure you can do this, but I'm just saying as an example, if I'm at work and my boss says, hey, I need the spreadsheet, if I could just type in a couple prompts to AI and be like, whip this spreadsheet up for me, that would be great. Those would be perfectly good uses. And I know that AI is also not a new thing, and painting with a broad brush when you say AI, a lot of people really get up in a tizzy because they're like, well, AI has been around for a long time. And it's like, yeah, we're mostly talking about generative AI here, and AI that is, damaging the environment and eating up the clean water. And those are the things that I worry about. If we didn't have to worry about destroying the environment and cutting out humans and, looking at all this slop, then it'd be a different conversation. But that's, me. How do you feel about it? Do you have any opinions on it?
I hate those stupid pictures that people post online of just the AI pictures of them, in the Scream movie or whatever. That stuff, it's ridiculous. I have a friend who looks at it kind of like the Tower of Babel, that one day it's just all going to crash. And he wants to progress it as far as we can take it and as fast as we can take it right now, just to prove that it eventually crashes. So he's like, give me all the AI, just push it, push it, push it as far as it can go, because eventually it's just going to crash. What do you think about that take?
I mean, if it leads to a crash in the bubble and we move away from it, sort of, I guess a comparison I would make to that is like NFTs, where for a
Right.
while everybody was like NFTs this, NFTs that. Every company was dumping money into NFTs, and then everybody was like, "Nah, we don't want this," and it kind of crashed. So yeah, in that aspect, I guess I could see that being a good thing. I mean, just going back, my only worry is environment and human costs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I don't want those to be casualties, because those will be really hard things to come back from. But I understand the perspective of like, yeah, put the pedal to the metal, and you're eventually going to hit a brick wall with it.
Yeah. Yeah. But
But
what's the cost of that? I mean,
yeah,
environmentally, and yeah.
it's interesting because you were talking about your kids earlier, and I was having a conversation with a younger friend of mine yesterday, and then also my Kathleen following up, and we were just talking about AI and things like Chat GPT and how they're going to affect younger generations. And like, I've had conversations with people who are teachers, and I know people who are teachers, and I just can't imagine being an educator or a young person in the world today where I'm a student and I don't really care. So I'm just going to have Chat GPT write my essay for me and turn that in. And then I'm a teacher and I have to look at that and go, is this AI? How do I approach this? How do I tell this student this is AI and I need you to write it again from from yourself?
Yeah.
Or like, I understand the temptation is there, especially as a kid, and you don't really like going to school, you don't really like doing homework, so I understand the temptation to just be like, Chat GPT, do my math homework for me,
Do it all.
yeah. But
Yeah.
I just can't imagine being like a young person today. Like, do your kids struggle with that, or do you keep them away from that, or how does that look?
That's we homeschool the kid. I homeschool the kids, and it's a fine line that I walk. They're fifth and seventh grade, so they're not fully into all the things that they could be using it for. As far as they're not writing a lot of essays and having to email and things like that, but they'll ask. I've given up them teaching them how to spell. They can't spell very well, but they're not going to ever need to. Looking at the way the world is with spell check on everything, they're never going to use a physical typewriter. They'll always have a computer or and things like that. And I've let them, I have to pick my battles on where to go with this. And so I let them, if they want to ask the smart speaker how to spell something, I'll let that slide. If they want to talk to text a report, I let that slide too, instead of them having to physically type it. But I do have them do typing classes as well. But it's I have to kind of pick and choose what I let slide by there. So it's definitely an issue that I have to keep an eye on, but it's a thin line to walk anyway there. So as long I just don't want them to become so reliant on it, like you said, where they're like, do this for me, take care of it, and I can sit back and I don't have to use my brain at all. I still make them use their brain, but for things that, I mean, the spell check thing's not going anywhere, right? So
Yeah, it's not going away, and I just, God, I can't even imagine being a parent and navigating that these days. That's one of these are the kind of things that I think about, like, dealing, if I had a kid, like, how do I introduce them to AI? How do I introduce them to technology? How do I safely make sure that they use the internet? You know what I mean? I know growing up as a kid who was doing, in comparison, very benign things on the internet, but I was still hiding that stuff from my mom. I didn't want her to know that I was on, like, 4chan looking up video game backgrounds, because I didn't want her to be like, what's 4chan, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But just the dark web, and just how you even like prepare a child for that and say, hey, there are going to be some things out there that are going to seem really persuasive and tempting, and you got to understand that there is more to that. Like, do you encourage them to come to you with questions? Obviously yes, but you can't control, like, kids are kids, they're going to be scared to come to you with deeper, more personal questions. So I just can't even imagine. It's those kind of things that make me very scared and very hesitant
Yeah.
to become a parent in 2026.
Yeah. One way that we've tried to combat it is to keep them off of everything. Like, they still don't have phones, and my oldest daughter, she'll be 13 next month, in 2 months, and she's like the only kid her age that doesn't have a phone, and she doesn't fit in. Like, all her friends have phones and they're in the cool club, and my daughter's not invited in that because we've sheltered that. But I volunteer with the youth group at my church, and so many of the kids I talk to, 17, 18-year-olds, have told me, keep them off of screens, a phone, keep them away from the internet as long as you possibly can. And we've tried that, but now they're basically outcast of society because they can't be in touch with what's cool and who's doing what and who's listening to who and watching what shows and whatever. So it's a lose-lose, man, pretty much. Yeah.
That's such a bummer to hear. Like,
Yeah.
because what do you do in that situation? Do you give in?
Yeah.
Do you let them have a phone and then heavily monitor what they do to the point where you're annoying them and they don't want the phone anymore, or they're
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
outcast because you don't let them download TikTok? You know what I mean? That sort of
Right.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah. They can have a phone, but it's so locked down. All they have on it's Peppa Pig. And their
Yeah.
friends are like, yeah, you're still not cool.
It's just wild. And like, I often try to compare it to like how things were when I was a kid, and like, I know you can't make that comparison. It's so different. It's so different these days.
Yeah. I have a quote here from Ben Affleck. It's an older quote, but I've just heard it recently talking about AI and art. It says, craft is knowing how to start and art is knowing when to stop. And I really like that quote. Like, AI can't do any of those things. Knowing how to start and when to stop in relation to art. I think we're
I
on
like
the
that.
same page there with a lot of that.
I've never heard that quote, but I like it. Yeah, it very much illustrates the limitations of a computer doing human-made emotional things.
Yeah. Would you consider yourself a mama's boy?
I want to say no, but yeah. I mean, I was raised ostensibly by a single mother, basically.
Yeah.
Again, my dad was in the picture. He was there for most of my life, but it was me and my mom kind of against the world. And I've definitely tried to distance myself from that as I've gotten older. But yeah, I was definitely raised a mama's boy. What about you?
I mean, yeah, I didn't have a dad in the picture, so I didn't really have an option. But yeah, I think so. I think, yeah, I could consider myself that. How does your wife get along with your mom?
They get along well enough. I would
Yeah.
say better than any other relationship I've had. And part of that is also my wife was more mature when she met my mom than obviously any of my teenage or young adult partners. But they get along well enough to the point where it makes me really happy when my mom's like, I love you. You're my daughter-in-law. Like,
That's cool.
that makes me really happy. And
Yeah.
being a mama's boy, I know that was not an easy place for my mom to get, having to kind of give up her son. She was
Yeah.
very uncomfortable with it when I first moved out and when I said I was getting married. And it's, I have to give her credit. She's really come around to having a family and her being a bigger part of that family.
That's great. Yeah, that's got to be hard. Yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah. Luckily for me, it's way different if you're a daughter, and I just super fit into my wife's family like that. Like they love
Really?
me. They loved me immediately. So I
Yeah.
really lucked out on that one. I always joke and say that I'm my mother-in-law's favorite child, even though she has two other ones.
That's good. Yeah. Who doesn't love you? Right?
Well, I don't know. Less people
Yeah.
these days, but maybe if
Right.
you were to talk to some people at my high school, they would have some different opinions. But
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
different people in high school than we are as 30 somethings.
Yeah. I want to hit on video games.
Sure.
You're obsessed with suggesting games to not only me, but I think it's just a thing that you do, right? You suggest games for everybody. You kind of read the person and you're like, this is the game that you would like. I think you pride yourself in suggesting games that people would like to play. What's up with that?
I don't know, really. I
Is that
think
a
it's
thing? Am I correct? Am I correct in
no, you
thinking
are. I
that?
had to think about it for a second, but I'm constantly like telling my wife about games I think she'd like. Like, I want to say I maybe do it a little bit less than I have in the past few years because I just kind of had to learn about my friends and how they're going to. I don't want to say like they don't want to hear my suggestions, but just kind of how they're going to take to my suggestions. Like I think about John, for example, and I've suggested many games to John, and it's not that I don't think that he wouldn't like those games or that he doesn't want to play them or anything, but he's just in a different phase of his life where he doesn't really need game suggestions. So I've kind of like pulled back and I'll have the thought like, oh, John would like this game, but I'll mention it to him if he asks, but I'm not going to go out of my way. I don't know. I feel that video games are the only thing that I really know anything about, and I really like along the same lines of like getting someone like a good birthday or Christmas present. You know what I mean? Like seeing a smile
Yeah.
on their face or like getting that feedback, like, hey, I really actually enjoyed this game. Like, thanks for the suggestion. Um, it just it warms my heart a little bit, and my thing has always been like getting more people to play more video games. I think more people should play way more games than they play. So if I can encourage that in any way, then that makes me happy. It's just like I said, it's the only thing that I know anything about, and I try to use that knowledge for good and not be annoying about it.
You're not annoying about it. And I think you're well versed in a lot of topics. And I don't think the video games is the only thing you know anything about, but
Well, thank you.
you're definitely well versed in games. So, what are you playing now?
A handful of things. A couple years ago, I realized that and I talked to you about this, my whole only play one thing at a time until you finish that wasn't working for me because it was forcing me, even if I liked a game, to play a game that maybe I didn't want to play at the time. And that was really detrimental to my opinion about the game and whether or not I finished it. So I kind of adopted this. I have so many game systems. Why not start like a game or two on each of them and just juggle them? So that has really helped my enjoyment because I can bounce around and not get sick of things. So in terms of
Yeah.
what I'm playing now, I just started Replaced. I'm playing Super Meat Boy 3D. I'm playing Romeo as a Dead Man, and I'm playing Unknown 9 Awakening. I
I
don't know,
haven't heard of any of those games other than Meat Boy.
but yeah, I'm just kind of bouncing between different things right now and seeing what sticks.
Yeah.
Are you playing anything right now?
I'm into these daggone 2K games. I like the Madden games, but man, I didn't know how much these 2K games nickel and dime you. I've been playing PGA 2K and WWE 2K, and I played PGA 2K and didn't really look into the pay to win system at all. I just played for fun. But
Yeah.
now it was free on PlayStation Plus last month, and a lot of my friends picked it up on there, and so I've been playing with them and getting back into it like competitively. And I'm like, wait a minute, these 2K, you have to pay to win to play. And
Yeah.
that was the wrestling game. When I first saw the wrestling game, it was like 400 characters. And I'm like, that's all the characters. There's been no more wrestlers in history other than the 400 that are on this game. So I can play with anybody that has ever wrestled. And I pop in the game and there's like 30 available
Of
wrestlers.
course.
The rest you have to, unlock through battle passes and things like that. And it's ridiculous. I don't know if I'm going to keep playing them. I'm right now. That's what I'm playing, but I don't know why.
I mean, because it's fun. That's why you're playing it.
It is.
Despite
It is
all
fun.
the negative aspects, it's fun, and that's what it should be about. Even
It is.
it says something about the game that you can enjoy it in spite of all those things. In spite of at least it's not bare bones. At least they're not asking you're booting it up, and they're like, if you want to play story mode, you got to pay $20 or whatever.
That's true. Yeah.
And like, I don't know if you saw sort of semi-related, but there was like somebody hacked Rockstar, and they released how much money Rockstar had made from GTA Online in like 1 year, and it was like $5 billion or something.
Wow.
And they found one player in California that had spent $1 million in 1 year on credits for GTA Online, which is just like,
gosh.
I want.
How did they find you?
I want to be the guy that drops $1 million, has $1 million to drop in a video game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Good for him.
Yeah. I mean, it's slightly a better addiction than drugs or something horrible. So
yeah, probably better for your physical body, maybe.
True.
Do you think GTA 6 is going to impact the industry as much as I think it will?
Well, tell me what you think it's going to do. Let me hear.
I don't think anybody's going to play anything else but that.
Yeah, I think so. I think that it's going to be the biggest entertainment launch in history. I think it's all we're going to hear about for probably about a month, and then to lesser degrees going forward for probably the next year or so. I mean, we still hear about GTA 5.
Yeah.
I'm also not the biggest GTA guy.
Right.
So just in a selfish perspective, I'm not looking forward to hearing about this game. Like, I might play it if it gets good reviews. But I also worry that GTA is known for its satire, and I worry how the satire lands in 2026. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I'm more interested in just the graphics and the possibility, how much open worldness is actually there, I think is what I'm looking forward to. But yeah, quote real gamers, I don't think are going to be as into this as all your Call of Duty and Madden people. This is going to be their game. And a lot of just the casual game players, this is going to be it.
I mean, I have the utmost faith in Rockstar in terms of like them being able to push the gameplay forward, in terms of it being a reactive open world like you were talking about. So that'll be really interesting, because I think they could have gone the safe route and just kind of copy and pasted GTA 5 or Red Dead and put it in a different setting. But I don't think that's what they'll do. But I also I can't fathom what you could do more in a video game.
Yeah.
To make it more immersive, more realistic, more sim-like. So it's going to be interesting to see what they actually come out with. Because I don't know if you've seen any of the trailers, but they had it's like a scene in one of the trailers where somebody's carrying like a 6-pack, and the water's moving individually in each bottle. And they sort of talked about the physics, like having each bottle having its own physics engine.
That's insane.
Yeah.
What do you mostly play on?
Mainly, I've been playing on the Switch too. It's really impressive what they can do when they put some effort into making that system shine. And so that's kind of mainly been where I've been playing. I really like the ability to play on the go and not have to be connected to the TV. And is that a big draw for you? Are you playing a lot on the Switch too? Or are you playing on your consoles on your TV? Because I know you got the game room, so why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I don't play a lot. I like the portability. I play my Switch 95% handheld. You said you like the portability. Do you play it a lot handheld?
I would say it's 50-50. I do have a
Okay.
nice TV, so when I can, I connect it. But I also like the ability to just, if my wife wants to watch something, then I can sit and play next to her. But like, I like the I like having the option of the portability. Like I said,
Yeah.
I've been getting these AAA games on Switch 2 for that specific draw. But the handheld's really a draw for you.
Yeah, it is. But the trophies in PlayStation, that's if I have a choice, I'd like to buy the game. Just bought the Mouse PI on PlayStation
Okay.
because of trophies.
You,
So that's a trophy, and I'm not a trophy hunter where I have to platinum everything. But if I'm going to play a game and get some kind of digital notification that I actually beat it, I'd like to have that. I
okay.
think that I really wish Nintendo had stars or something. If and they have some achievements in games, but nothing that people can go on your page and see. Christian's beat all the games. Now I have to see where I rank against him and things. So I don't know. The trophies are really a draw for me. So
That makes sense. I mean, I used to be when I was a bigger Xbox player back in the day. I used to be really into the achievements, and like you said, like I don't need them, but if I'm gonna play a game, I'd like to get a reward. And then the way achievements used to be structured, it felt more of like a little bit of a nudge in the direction of like maybe you should 100% this, or maybe you should go out of your way and do all the side quests, sort of thing.
yeah,
Where so that encouraged me to play more of the game, so
yeah,
that was nice. As I drifted away from Xbox, those sort of things didn't become as important to me, but I definitely see the appeal.
yeah. That's cool. Well, this conversation has made me realize how much more qualified for our previous job that you were than I was, because you know way more than I do about things, and I don't know how I got hired. But
I don't think that's the case, and I also don't think that the knowledge is what made or broke you in that role. So you're being too modest.
You're right. You're
You're
right. That is true.
when they hired me, they literally were like, "We're less concerned about how much video game knowledge you have, and more concerned with how you can connect with people." And I really
Mm,
think that's the core of the job, and I think that's something that you do really, really well, and in a
yeah,
very earnest sense. And I think that's
yeah,
why you were so successful at the job.
yeah. It was 98% empathy. Yeah.
Yeah, even though they'd like to tell you otherwise.
All right, man. I'm going to end it here. Thank you for joining me and talking and taking time out of your busy schedule and life and day and sitting with me. I've really enjoyed this catching up with you. It's been a minute.
Yeah, it has, and I really enjoyed it too. Thank you for having me on. It's nice to just chat with people. I don't even my close friends. I don't really get to have long, uh, thoughtful chats like this. So this was
I
really, really
know.
nice.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime.
Thank you, Bob Cousy.